So I want to ask you, do you know of Bertrand de Jouvenel?
Yes, I do know of Bertrand de Juvenal.
So what is your idea of him?
My idea of him is he's often called the founder of elite theory. I think that is a bit overblown, and I think that you could you could see him as maybe returning to elite theory, but I think if you read any historian right prior to the French Revolution, the default assumption implicit there is elite theory. Nobody feels the need to argue against the logic of democracy in favor of elite theory. They just assume it. And
Yes,
so
yes.
Bertrand de Juvenal, I guess he's not really innovating anything, but he's trying to take people back to elite theory and argue against democratic logic. And I think there is a value to that. Although in your message to me, you say I am not an elitist in any sense of the word, because I believe people are different, and
Yes, that is true.
so I'm not sure I understand how you can not be an elitist if you think people are different, but maybe you can
I
explain
am
that.
very happy to explain if I can in this short time. But so do you know that René Girard actually had a student, a literal student of his in the school at Stanford, I think, called Eric Gans.
Yes, I'm familiar with generative anthropology. Yeah.
And so do you know that there is this Christopher Bond who has written a book
Nemesis.
which...
Yes, I'm familiar with
Yeah,
Nemesis.
exactly. Yes. And then also there is this Denis Bouvard who has written another book, Anthropomorphics. And they combine this Eric Gans ideas with Juvenal's ideas. And in that situation, it actually stops being an elite theory, in my view of things. Because in that situation, there is no human individuals and there is no human individual agency. Because all that is going on is that there are these power structures, and the whole reason that it works is because people think that they have agency, but then whenever they dismantle these power structures to give people the freedom, then they actually just become more enslaved to these more universally hegemonic power structures. And that is my understanding of it, that also these elites who are supposedly who are like steering the thing, and sometimes very Machiavellian also, but anyway, they are also subsumed by this the logic of power and the agency of this power. And so that is my view of things, very shortly explained.
Sure. I guess my response to that would be I think you can believe in God and elite theory at the same time, which is, not what you're saying. I mean, you could be an atheist or whatever, but when you say something like human beings are all subsumed by power and we're all subject to power, like I'm a Platonist, so I believe
I'm
that.
also
Okay.
Platonist.
Awesome. So I believe that the fact that all human beings are subject to laws outside of our control doesn't invalidate the fact that if we want to understand politics, we have to look at elites. And you write to me this paragraph, and I think it's an interesting idea, so I'll just read it quickly. You say, if the divisions of societies into classes were as natural as, say, Alamarius suggests, and the lower classes were merely a kind of slave breed, there would be no need for law. Law exists to protect the accumulation of wealth. Ideology is the justification of law, nor would there be such a thing as resentment. Dogs and horses do not accumulate resentment in their subservience. They do not need ideology. So I guess my response to that would be that I think dogs and horses or any sort of animal that we domesticate or anything like that we use as tools, those animals, well, it's not, I think you've almost got the statement backwards. It's not that they, quote unquote, don't require ideology, it's that they're not capable of understanding ideology. Ideology is not a tool that can be used on animals because they're not linguistic. You can't explain to them
Yes,
these
we
concepts.
agree with, we are in agreement with that.
Right. So when you say things like, you know, where dogs and horses are, well, maybe call them natural slaves as opposed to human beings. Like they're naturally subservient. They naturally want to do what humans tell them to do, whereas humans are not. Humans don't naturally do. I don't actually think that's true. I think that may have been true 12,000 years ago or something. But I think that there's a lot of, for example, the psychological mechanism of codependence, which I view as on a spectrum. I think most people are codependent to some extent. Some people are extremely codependent. And I would say that's evidence that people have kind of an inborn or instinctual urge to follow orders and to be abused and to have people tell them what to do.
Yes, but what I would say is that these are not mutually exclusive things. That human beings can have this slave thing, but also they can have something else. And that is what I think, that human beings have this something else. And that is also what Girard thinks it's the difference between humans and other animals. That other animals can, they are instinctively submit to these natural dominance hierarchies, while human beings imitate the desire of the superior, and therefore they generate resentment. And that is also actually in chimps. Also, Richard Wrangham has shown that chimps gather to kill the alpha chimp.
Yeah, I think sometimes you're putting this in black and white. Sorry, I have an alarm going off. I have to silence here really quick. Okay, so
Okay.
that's gone. Anyway, as I was saying, if you say that people are not a mindless inert substance. They have been made inert and hence resentful and violent by an artificial environment which favors certain modes of social agency. The social organism they have been embedded in does not accord with their nature. In my view, it does not accord with the nature of any human being, though some of them are more
Yes,
successful.
we are in agreement with that
Well,
also.
I'm quoting you right now, and I'm going to respond to that where I disagree. And you say it's the higher classes who are the most miserable, and in the richest countries, depression and suicide are concentrated. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I don't think this is a black and white issue, because again, we could go to dogs and horses, which have been domesticated, but also they have been domesticated to an extent. They are not perfectly domesticated. If dogs and horses were perfectly domesticated, that means you would never have to train a dog, because biologically the dog would know how to fetch, and the dog would know how to do tricks and things like that. So there is actually a certain form of with horses there's this term buck breaking, which has now become
Okay, I don't
a
know.
reference to other things. But buck breaking and training dogs is evidence that these creatures, even though they've been domesticated to an extent, I think we agree with that, but they still require a form of artificial environment. And if we define artificial meaning created by humans, not natural, not found in nature, they are in an artificial environment. And so every creature which has been domesticated, whether it's human or animal, they're all in an artificial environment. And I would argue that putting a cat or dog, having a cat in the house for its entire life, having a dog in the house, never allowing it to hunt, never allowing it to engage in its natural behaviors, that also creates depression in those animals. Animals can become depressed just like humans become depressed. So I don't think this is something special or unique about humans. I think humans have it, animals have it, but it doesn't indicate that, somehow, like when you say, well, this is an artificial environment, that yes, every form of domestication is by definition an artificial environment because it's taking a living creature and making it into an artifice, into a tool.
Sorry, can I just interject that it wasn't my point really, that the point about the artificiality, it's more has to do with the way our world has developed through global capitalism, and the way that empires enlarge and therefore uproot people from their traditional ways of life.
Right. Yes, empires do that. Certainly, there's a cost to that. I'm not denying that cultures aren't destroyed as a result of empires. I suppose I just feel like that is a moral axiom
It
that I don't
wasn't.
buy.
Actually, I will try to say that it's not really a moral judgment. Like I don't really look at these things in a moral light. I think there can be a lot of course, there's a lot of good things about our civilization and everything that has happened, and also in uprooting there is a lot of good things. Like actually, philosophy wouldn't have happened without this uprooting and this civilizational enlargement. So definitely, I don't think about it in any kind of a moral binary way.
Okay, I mean that's fair. Then I mean, if you're simply describing, if you're saying domestication is a form of uprooting from our natural state, which I think you describe, I'm quoting you here, you say if there's a natural human society is the communal anarchism of pygmies, the anti-state war machine of Pierre Clastres, spontaneous mutual coordination that happens in catastrophes, studied by Rebecca Solnit, in which the survivors report a sense of meaningful participation absent in the social alienation of daily life. And so I think I'm not actually disagreeing with you.
Yes, and that can sound like I guess that I am being kind of moralistic and that this is like the utopia, but that wasn't my intention. I don't remember what I wrote, but definitely I don't think that is like utopia, but I think that is like a natural state.
I would agree with you that we can say that is a more natural and less artificial state because it's a less civilized state. And those words obviously do have moral connotations, especially since you point out that you specifically say here, you say that the right believes that our economic and political structures are natural, since no one can say anymore with a straight face that they are divinely ordained, and hence all inequality is simply the manifestation of some cosmic ladder of value or non. So I think we also agree that these terms natural and artificial are used by the right wing to basically mean they're divinely ordained. They've substituted the word natural for divinely ordained, and I agree that the right uses that in a moral sense, whereas maybe we can distance ourselves from that, and we could use that in an objective sense. And in that case, I agree with you.
Yes. All right.
Well, we have to disagree, though.
We have to disagree.
We have to disagree at something.
We are enemies, definitely. Well, let's see. There were some things that I wanted also to Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess we disagree about the Girard thing. That we disagree about Juvenal. I think that was a disagreement. Hello?
Yeah, where do we disagree about Juvenal?
Yeah, because my idea was that because you were my idea was that when because Girard's best book is Deceit, Desire, and the Novel. It's his first book, and the theory there is that when people get rid of gods, and like a god dies, then what happens is that people they get because people cannot be individually self-evaluating, so they need a god, and then the god becomes the other people, and then people become vain. And that is what I believe, that is what happens. And then that fits perfectly with Juvenal's idea that when you dismantle and destroy these subsidiary power structures, and that then what happens is that people become more easily controlled by more hegemonic power structures, because they don't have these mediators anymore. So that is my idea of it, and yeah, I think Bond's book, it makes perfect sense for me.
Yeah, that point isn't entirely clear to me. So when you say that our views are too immeasurable to have a conversation, I feel like we're coming up to the point of having some understanding, but I suppose I think maybe where I do feel like there's something breaking down, and I'm going to quote you again here. You say, I do not believe the hunger for power to be natural for any human being. So to me, when you say that, it sounds like you're rejecting not just Nietzsche, but I think you're also rejecting Schopenhauer. And I think you're also contradicting Plato. I think that Plato would argue that the reason why we need law and justice is because men have a natural hunger for power, and it has to be restricted with logos and with law, and with this
Yeah,
system.
yes, definitely, yeah, yeah, definitely, I kind of agree. What I was meaning there is that, in this kind of pygmy situation, when your whole community is like your family, and you're very intimately connected with everyone, then you don't really have this power hungriness. That is my view. And actually, yeah, I think that in Nietzsche is one of my favorite philosophers, but I also think I really disagree with him on a lot of things. And I think his wisdom is that he studied his own phenomenology, his own masculine libido, basically. And that is my idea also of Nicolan's gnon, that it's just masculine libido actually like sublimating itself in our societal situation.
Yeah, I would say regarding the pygmies is that all forms of sexuality are predatory, and they are a will to power. So even if you could say that, well, we have this society where everyone's family and therefore there's not as much competition. I mean, children compete with each other within games. Now, it's not as violent as, capitalist competition, for example. But I think the desire to have power over one another exists within children. I think it exists necessarily in sexuality. Again, there's a
Yeah,
spectrum.
definitely to some extent, definitely, of course. Yeah, and that is so anyway how I think like humanity began. So definitely there's the seed there. but I think they just don't. They kind of curtail it because they have this taboo of accumulating power, so that they curtail it, that it doesn't start like growing, like they don't encourage it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that I'm still not clear. I guess when I'm reading what you wrote to me, I get the sense, like you say, for example, that you object to what you call Faustian accelerationism. I'm not sure I use that term, but I'm not going to quibble with it.
Probably not. I just maybe just interpret it.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So my view, and I guess this is, where you disagree with a lot of these philosophers. My view is that you are correct that there is a form of alienation between human nature and law and society. This actually exists within domesticated animals as well, so it's not unique to
Yes,
us.
yes.
And so I identify this as a problem. And one way of solving this problem is Ted Kaczynski primitivism, going back to a pygmy society. I think that it's theoretically legitimate, but it's not practically legitimate because power is not merely a moral orientation, but it's a physical evolutionary strategy that is more successful. And so I think that
Yes,
there's
that is exactly. That's really well said. I agree with that.
And so as a result, I believe that the resolution in the conflict between these two forces of nature and law is to utilize technologies to directly interface with our nature so that we can resolve these inner conflicts and inner struggles. So for example, you say that there's no such thing as a human which truly just wants to be a working class person or to just do what they're told or whatever. Some people believe that AI could do this, could fulfill that slave role, that we could have robots to do that, and I'm happy for that to be the case. There's also different forms of specialization that we force people in where it's uncomfortable because people have a desire for, like, I'd like to be outside frolicking in the flowers right now, but instead I'm inside talking into a microphone. And so in some senses, I'm generating this constant friction within myself.
Yes, can I? That is not really my concern. This that people are like. I'm not saying that people are like oppressed or like some of the working class are oppressed. It's like you said, it's for every human being. And in a way, it is maybe the billionaires who are the most alienated and most alien. And my idea is more about that. That what basically I think that this Jean Gebser is really smart about this idea that we have to try to integrate these past forms of life and like try to gain some kind of a communal like a rooting. Like we can look at these pygmies and Indians and everything, and we can try to learn from them to live with the earth and with nature in a way that we understand our finitude. Like also, Heidegger, being towards death, we understand our finitude and our physical embodiedness. And I think AI and transhumanism are the diametrical opposite of this. So I think this is precisely where our disagreement is.
Yeah, maybe we're getting closer. I'm not. So I think, and I'm willing to grant you this. I might not actually believe it because I think when we start talking about suffering and we say, well, do the lower classes suffer more? Do the upper classes, do the billionaires suffer more? That is, to me, an unanswerable question because it's requiring that we
anyway, people are individuals in any case.
Well, it's just really difficult for me to come up with any sort of test that neglects externalities. So, for example, with mental illness, I could say, well, you're clearly mentally ill because, you're antisocial, or because you physically harm yourself, or because you lie in bed all day. Like, there's some kind of external measurement of your internal suffering and disorder.
Yeah.
Whereas if you say something like, it's really the billionaires who suffer the most, versus these lower classes who are on drugs and they're, getting divorced at a higher rate. It's like, I'm not comfortable believing in that, but I want to, like, for the moment.
Yeah, that wasn't my point. My point was just trying to say that my concern isn't here in what I was saying so much that the lower classes are oppressed, which they might be, but that wasn't the point. The point was just that about this alienation, which is universal.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think we probably agree on that all participation in an alienating system requires some degree of alienation for all parties involved.
Yes.
Whether you're alienated from the top down or from the bottom up, or wherever direction that is, and whatever quantity that is, there's always forms of alienation that result. And I think actually
Yes.
my point about being stuck inside and not being frolicking the flowers, I mean, I think that is a legitimate point of alienation, and I think that
Yeah.
I find that to be
But
alienating.
what I would say maybe to that is that even then you can be stuck inside and not picking the flowers. But if you feel like you have some like really meaningful mission, like I think that is the thing, that we are living like in this what I call nothing job. It is the nothingness. That is what happens with this uprooting, that we lose the gods. Like what Hölderlin wrote, that when the gods don't walk when in the Greece, like the gods walked among men, but we lost all the gods, and then we even lost the Christian God and the angels. So that is what is kind of for me the concern of this uprooting, that everything becomes meaningless vanity, and then the only thing left is just power and technology, and then we destroy the earth and make it inhabitable.
I agree with you. Well, okay. Let me say this. I mean, maybe you can agree or disagree, but I think that if I were to get outside into nature right now and I start walking around, I'm much more likely to find the gods than I am inside on my computer.
Yes, that is good points. That is definitely a good
So
point.
that's I'm not disagreeing with you when you say we've lost our gods, but I think the best way to get the gods back is reintegrating with the body and with nature, and that's
Yes,
very
yes.
right. That's very difficult to do if at the same time I'm saying we have to increase technology. So these seem to be contradictions, and I would agree that at least in the short term, they are contradictions. But I would say that to resolve this contradiction, we have to like push things to their logical conclusion rather than hesitating. For example, if you ever see like a cat and it's going to make a jump, but before it makes a jump, the cat will engage in these cat calculus, like a cat calculation, and it will start to fidget. It starts to move its feet because it's in this state of indecision. It's in this state of skepticism and doubt. It doesn't know if it should make the jump because it doesn't know if it's going to fall or if it's going to fail to, get to the ledge. And I think that's the emotional state of many people when they're confronted with the future of technology is, a part of them says, and this is what I would advocate is like, let's make the jump. Let's figure out what's on the other side. And hope for the best. And I guess that becomes a new form of God in a certain sense. But you also have people who say, that could be dangerous. That could destroy the earth, as you said. And I don't want us to destroy the earth. But, that is a legitimate fear that people have. And so maybe we should just stay where we are. But sometimes staying where you are is the worst of options. And so, like,
Yes,
I would rather people just be like
yes.
full Ted Kaczynski or full, techno futurism, but just saying,
But
like, no, let's
I
keep.
will also, yeah, I will just clarify that my position isn't that we should stop technology. The point is only, what is the aim? That is the point. When we don't have the gods, we don't have the aim. The only aim becomes capital and power. So that is the problem, and that is why the technology is so destructive, not only for the earth, but also for our souls. Like there is this, in my view, Instagram is the kills people's souls, basically. So that is my point. Then when we have the aim, then we can do all the technology we want, and it will go in the right direction.
Well, that I think we can agree on. we need an aim. Otherwise, it's just going to be paperclip making nanobots and capital and stuff like that. So yeah, maybe we don't have enough time today to flesh out that aim. But I do want to, as we're finishing up the hour here, I want to give you the last word, final thoughts, and tell people. I guess you're not going to tell them where to find you or what you're working on, but you can tell them, if you've already mentioned a number of different authors that you think are good, but maybe if there's somebody you missed, you can kind of finish up and point people toward whatever you'd like to promote.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And so my perspective about this aim is that is like my own, and I don't want to be imperial about it, but my own idea is that is what Christianity in its originality is about. But then, of course, what it became is a totally different story and kind of the opposite. But that is what I think Christianity originally was about. And of course, we don't have enough time to talk about it, but that is what I think basically like Simon Weil is about. And a lot of like what is called a Gnostic Christianity, about this how to find the aim in the situation when you are uprooted, like how to build a community with the Samaritan. And I think it is the spiritual discipline, like the answer isn't some theory or belief, but a spiritual inner work discipline, like a Gurdjieff work. So that is maybe my final thoughts on this matter.
Excellent. Okay, well, if there is nothing more, we will have to sign off there. I know it's only a short time, but we had a lot of technical difficulties. Unfortunately, sometimes you just can't prevent those things, and life
Yes,
happens. So I was alienated by those
but it was
technical
nice.
difficulties, but we were
Yeah,
spiritually disciplined and we persisted.
yes,
So I appreciate
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. It was nice talking to you.
It was nice talking to you as well, Casper. Take care, and hopefully we can someday learn more about this spiritual discipline. But until then, I will bid you
Yes,
farewell.
yes. Farewell. All right.
Take
Thanks.
care. Bye
Bye.
bye. Okay. Yeah, that was a lot of technical difficulties, guys. This is gonna be a shorter one than usual, just because I'm not going to go into all the details of what happened, but basically everything that went wrong, could have went wrong, did go wrong, um, which was frustrating. But that. Actually, in a certain sense, it made me more sympathetic to his arguments about capitalist and technological alienation, because I was like, wow, I'm feeling pretty frustrated about this. But if we were just pygmies on the savannah, we could just talk to each other easily, and it wouldn't be this difficult. So, yeah, smart guy, well-read guy. I don't think we have any disagreements at all. I mean, it seems like he sent me a few essays and didn't want me to reveal his Substack. I don't know exactly the reason why, but maybe he's a public figure. Whatever, I don't know. But yeah, he was sending me like a lot of material, and I was like, yeah, you're just kind of morally asserting, this is bad. This is, we should live like pygmies. And then I tried to quote him exactly to not strawman his position, but I felt like then when we were actually talking, I didn't actually see where we disagreed. So yeah, I mean, I agree that we need goals beyond the mere continuation of the status quo or something. We need ideals, absolutely. We need forms of spiritual discipline, absolutely. And I make that critique very often of conservatives, that I feel that conservatives are only concerned with, managing the status quo and creating greater efficiency. And I say, no, we need an identity, which means we need a goal that we're going toward. So that's my critique. And I freely admit that if I had that God, if I had that identity, if I had that goal to provide to people, a complete vision of the world, and I was able to communicate that to people, I would be a cult leader. Like, I would have thousands or millions of followers, and I would take over the world, like, Jesus Christ or Muhammad. But obviously, I don't have that capacity, but we at least need to understand that that is what is required, and that is the highest good that we should be working toward. And if you're not working toward that, you're part of the problem. So, yeah, I don't actually think we disagreed at all. I just think maybe there was I don't know. I don't know why he thought we wouldn't be able to have he said our views might be too incommensurable. Which certainly the things he wrote to me, it did seem like we weren't going to be able to agree because it was too much axiomatic moralization. But I think we were able to agree on some things. So anyways, guys, if you like it, you got to hit the like button. You got to comment. You got to restack. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm doing like hundreds of these interviews, and I'm trying to space them out because people have complained. Paid subscribers have left. They've unsubscribed and they said, too many videos. We hate the interviews. We want more articles. So I'm going to try to space these out. So they might not all be in the right order. They might not all be whatever. They might not all be edited properly or have the correct sound compression. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just doing, 40 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. I'm just doing these interviews. And if they're good, great. I'll do a part 2. And if they're not, I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to talk to people and maybe overcome certain levels of alienation. So anyway, guys, that's it. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.